wanted to cover is probably a little bit more of the nuance than what's been gone through in some of the other speeches. So the government says that this bill, which will be voted on in the upper house next week, isn't they can do whatever they want. So it's not exactly a high bar to overcome. You could do just about anything, and it's an improvement on you can do whatever you want. Now, another thing that they have come out and said is, it's like New South Wales. It has oversight. No, it doesn't. Not the same way as New South Wales. And interestingly enough, this is just not really getting mentioned. The thing I think, though, that concerns me the most is that they will get up there and say that. You have Fiona, and you have Samantha, and you have Andy all getting up and saying, no, it's better. It's like New South Wales, but it's not. And it makes you wonder, are you so incompetent that you haven't read the bill? Or are you lying? I think we're all pretty comfortable with the fact that neither of those options are really good.
They're all liars.
The thing that's been touched on a number of times today is the fact that there is a clause, and this is indefensible. There is a clause that says that mandates can be made based on attributes. They have taken the wording of the Equal Opportunity Act that is designed to protect citizens and used it as a clause in this bill to target them. Nothing like this exists anywhere else. On that basis alone, the idea that this bill is like others is a complete lie.
Legal discrimination!
What many people also don't realise is they also added a clause after this that says that if they make mandates based on your attributes, such as your marital status, pregnancy, sexual orientation, disability, or anything else like that, it's not discrimination. So they made sure to protect themselves. Now, to anyone who thinks that this bill will not affect your life if you live in Victoria, it's at this point I would remind you that Daniel Andrews has been very clear that he intends to run a booster program next year. And the reason I say this is that by June next year, we're back at square one. By June next year, it will have been more than 6 months since we've hit the 90, 95% or whatever other target he's changed the national roadmap to. And we're back at square one. And he will have the power to make 2022 like 2021. Possibly worse.
Kill that bill! 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 Kill that bill!
So this bill has a lot of problems. And the one thing that they're hiding behind is that there is a process to make sure nothing bad happens. So let's look at what that process is. They're hiding behind SARC, which is the Scrutiny of Acts and Regulations Committee. Not to make this boring, but basically they look at legislation and make sure it isn't bad. Now, that's the main mechanism for making sure what they do isn't bad. Kind of problematic that the government controls SARC.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So SARC has only 7 members of all of Parliament, and 4 of them, including the chair, are Labor.
We're idiots. They treat us like idiots.
If you want to know the biggest difference with New South Wales, their equivalent committee has 7 members or thereabouts. It's chaired by a non-government MP, and it does not have a government majority. So I don't know what they think is like New South Wales, but it sure ain't their checks and balances. They also added in a nice little clause that SARC, let's say for example, it magically recommends that the government should remove one of the pandemic orders. They have added a clause that must go through both houses of Parliament, not just one, both, where they hold the majority in the lower house. So to get past their first majority, you then have to get past their second majority to go past them. Somehow, I don't really think that's going to happen. We heard Adam Somyurek give testimony in IBAC this week. And I'm going to read out the quote that he said yesterday. about his time in the Labor government. When we enter Parliament as Labor parliamentarians, we have to sign a pledge saying that even if we disagree with the policy, we have to vote with that policy, otherwise we get kicked out of the party. Now, that's not exactly democracy.
It's dictatorship. It's communism.
So if you have a political party that as an ingrained ethos, you must sign an agreement that if you get elected, you will put the party before the people, do you really expect them to hold themselves accountable?
That's the plan. This is all part of the plan. The Great Reset.
Where no council is, the people fall.
And it's at this point that we come to the letter from the QCs, which I'll just read out a couple of quick snippets. And I want to take a moment to point out that a QC is not a regular lawyer. They are the top of their game. And what most people don't realise is the only place up from a QC is a judge. These people are the future beholders of our legal system. If they are coming out and saying this is a problem, they know what they're talking about, because it will be their future to help enforce laws like this or decide if they're relevant, and that is their concern. So from them, they have said that the directions are effectively unreviewable. They have said it is one thing to allow temporary rule by decree with an unforeseen and extraordinary emergency. It is something else altogether to entrench rule by decree as a long-term norm. There is no need to give the government of the day a blank check to rule by decree.
No new normal.
And to that end, I would say, I think we're all aware that the Crossbench 3, as they're often known, have basically turned off their emails and phones. But what I would say is their colleagues haven't. All of them, essentially, belong to political parties. Andy Medic belongs to the Animal Justice Party. They have head offices. They have other MPs. The Greens have head offices. They have other MPs. If they wish to stand beside their colleague to pass something like this through, they should have to defend it as well. So I'm going to leave it there on that note, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who came today, and thank you to everyone who will no doubt watch this online and share it. It's information like this that I think is really important, that people understand what is going on here and what it means for our state. So thank you, everyone.